was like, Char, I'm not here to tell you who you are, but I think it's important that you see how life can be when you're...
How you might fit into it.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time in my own head and thinking about what I might need to do to change in order to be accepted. It was a real progression from where I had been on TOWIE, say 3-4 years prior, to where I was now. And I sat there and I was ready to embark on being a 30-year-old gay guy.
So when did you first feel your obsession with your body?
I actually didn't realise that I had any form of obsession when it came to my body image, and I didn't actually realise that it was affecting my mental health as much as it was until I have done work with having therapy in recent years. I think there was always this part of me from a very young age that wanted to be accepted, be validated by being popular in some way, or being just one of the boys, because I went to an all-boys school, and school life was not a good time for me at all. I was actually so badly bullied in one of the schools that my parents had to take me out and put me into this all-boys school, which was really challenging for me as well, because I'd only been in a mixed environment. Then I got put into this new school, and being amongst young lads in that environment, very religious school, it's very sporty. Everyone was on this competitive race to be the teacher's pet, to be the best in the football team and the cross country and the cricket, and I just never really had it in me to want to be that, but I wanted to be that, if that makes sense. It wasn't coming naturally at all. So I was trying any way to try and fit in, and that was actually making me more of a target to be bullied because I was useless. And so I think that I always had a quite low self-esteem, and I spent a lot of time in my own head and thinking about what I might need to do to change in order to be accepted or wanted, even by the PE teacher, if you like. I just was always the last guy to be chosen. I actually think that really impacted my confidence and my mental health from a young age. It's never a nice feeling. So I think that these are the seeds that were planted that were giving me a low self-esteem to begin with.
Mm-hmm. And those seeds, where did you kind of see it potentially taking you? Where did you feel that those seeds might have led to?
So school life, I just tried to get by, and the bullying still occurred in the all-boys school. And in recent months, and speaking about this with a therapist, bullying at school can really, really damage you. And I know that a lot of people will say, I was bullied at school, it didn't really have so much impact later on in life. I actually think it really does. And this is why, with a little bit of what I'm trying to do with my advocacy work, as I'm older, wiser, and speaking from a man of experience, I know that what bullies do to young individuals can really affect them. And you don't always realise it until later on in life. They definitely took a spark away from me that I just wouldn't want to shine, because I didn't want to be a target in the end. I just thought, I'm just going to keep myself in my own little cocoon, and the less that anyone notices me, the better. And that was really detrimental to my personality, to my maturing, to my growth. So I really believe now that bullying has a major part in this whole journey for me. And I really want to stress that if I go to schools now and talk, if I'm talking to parents, talking to my sister, I've got nephews, it's so important that the environment that kids are being brought up in their education and home and friends, etc., is a good environment, and it's not going to be detriment to them in any way.
And I was reading about your experience of coming out as well, and so you've got this kind of a previous experience of bullying that, you know, is quite foundational when you're growing up as a kid. Those parts are really foundational to your life, but also you only recently came out. How did that kind of affect you as well? Did it all stack up?
Yeah, the coming out thing was really... there was always a lot going on, I guess. I was a complex person, and I'm cool with that, and I actually own that now. But obviously, growing up and being a youngster in itself is complex. You're learning about yourself. You're at a vulnerable, impressionable age. And the sexuality side of things was quite a late development for me.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely thought I was probably like asexual. I had no interest in dating. It wasn't like I was going through my school life, my teens, my 20s, fancying guys and holding back or doing things on the sly and then in denial. There was nothing. I'd never done anything. I was someone that just kept himself to himself. But there was always speculation. There was always that question, why hasn't Charlie got a girlfriend? Where's Charlie's girlfriend? Charlie likes Madonna. Charlie likes music. Charlie likes dancing. You know, but there was this element of potential shame that could bring. There was still these views on sexuality, homosexuality, that I would hear and pick up. And obviously at school, to be called gay was like one of the worst things.
It's a big insult.
Yeah, massively. And I really hope that is changing now, that it holds no gravitas at all. But back then, it really was like the worst thing to be called. So, but I never actually thought I really was. It was a really random journey to actually identifying with my sexuality. And that was something that obviously I was going to embark on later on. But the bulk part of my teens and my 20s, I actually just thought maybe I'm not into anyone. And I've got relatives like that in my family that have never been in relationships, and I thought maybe that's a genetical thing, and I was kind of happy to accept that. Mm-hmm. So the sexuality thing came when I got onto reality TV, and there was a huge spotlight on that.
And did being in the public, you know, quite a lot of these battles are all lived out really, really privately. Did being in the public eye make it harder, accelerate it? How did it change those battles?
I think that, I mean, it was such a random experience to be put onto a reality TV show like The Only Way is Essex, which back then was without doubt the biggest show of its time. It hit hard, and everyone was talking about this new genre of TV. I'd been watching it as a fan. Mm-hmm. At home, just thinking, what is this? I'm an Essex boy. There was parallels in my life that did relate to what these guys were doing, but it seemed so far-fetched and so random that I was fascinated by it. And the response to it was absolutely huge. I didn't think for 1 second I'd ever end up on it. But prior to that, I was always very much my own person. I didn't have a big group of friends. I hadn't dated anyone. I was a business guy. I had a little restaurant in Essex. I was very focused on that image. I didn't see myself as attractive because I wasn't going after anyone. I shut down on that because I say I shut down. It never even had opened up, truthfully. So I just thought I was one of these people that wasn't really that important to me. But then when I got onto The Only Way is Essex, which was a total U-turn in my life and a life-changing opportunity, then obviously the blinkers came off and this whole new world, it was an awakening that I'd never seen before, never felt.
And would you say it's sort of, with those blinkers off, all of a sudden things got out of control?
So it's being in structured reality TV, you know that you're part of something which is a machine, that producers want what they want. When I first got on the show and the producers came and met me, they asked me about my private life. And I'd said that I was this mid-20-year-old Essex boy that hadn't really learnt about himself. I'd been in this cocoon in my own little world for many, many years. I'd been in my own head. I never felt that confident. I never felt like I was part of anything. I didn't ever feel like I fitted in. And I really would like to see if I can somewhere. And that can come in any way, shape or form. And I actually said to the producers, like, love and relationships, it could be anything or anyone, or it might not be anyone. I really don't know, because I've never really dated before. And in hindsight, they were looking at me as like, okay, this guy's complex. He's going to be interesting, and he's very different to any other Essex guy that we've had on the show. And so they had their idea of what they wanted to do. They wanted to push the sexuality side of things. They wanted to see if I could have my realization or make some big revelation whilst I was on the show. And I guess in my naivety at the time, I didn't realize what they were doing.
Yeah.
But it definitely forced the hand to make me then start really questioning, okay, so why everyone's saying that I am this and I'm not sure, because I'm just not feeling it. And I had a few people come my way and I was like, no, not interested. It was a really conflicting time. And so actually that in itself was more damaging than what I realized until when I stepped out and actually looked back and thought, wow, that was such stress on me to almost like be forced to either come out or label myself, which I just wasn't ready to do.
No, not at all. You stepped out. How did you find help?
So the show was going around and around in circles, and it had become, the phenomenon that it's still going today. And I could see that they wanted this revelation from me, and I just didn't feel it. And so it was a case of pretty much your storyline is what's really important here, and if there's nothing more to say, then your time is done.
You're out.
So yeah, it's very cutthroat. Give us what we want and we play ball, or then there's nowhere to go on that. So then I'm in this situation where you're meant to be a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
People have watched you for the last few years. You've got huge social media following. You're going to premieres and people know you in the street, and you can't actually walk around normally, but you're very accessible. And people are asking me the most personal questions because they're watching these subjects play out.
It's your personal life.
Absolutely.
Living out completely publicly.
So there was no mask really. There was nowhere to hide. And so when I finally decided to step out, I wanted to use that time to really understand me a little bit more. It was very competitive in that show. Image was becoming more and more apparent. This race for, the gigs and being the magazine covers and being on the big photo shoots for the show, and everyone's got their tops off. And I used to get called monkey, or he's so not attractive. And I'd see the tweets, and that bullied kid in me would then start responding in my head of, I need to change my appearance. I need to try and get rid of this look that I'm giving off, or why am I not sexy and I'm not having like relationships? I'm not seen as sexy at all. And I want to kind of try and find that because it looks great. And I kind of got myself stuck in that mindset, which was definitely when image started really coming to the forefront of my mind, that pretty much you need to change and you need to make a big change, which is where, my nature is quite obsessive.
How did that appear? How did that manifest itself?
Well, actually, I was asked to do Men's Health magazine, and that was a really big opportunity because it's a huge fitness magazine. We were given personal trainers, nutrition, supplements, a set period of time. We were going to then do this big photo shoot, and it was an amazing opportunity. And my body really did transform within this 6-week period. And it was going to, because I take things very seriously. I understood it was a good opportunity. I'd signed up to do it, so I would do it to the best of my ability. And when I did that photo shoot, and I'd gone from this like skinny little boy to then this shoot where I'm like ripped, and the photographer was like, yeah, you look amazing. And I was feeding this this new ego. I was like, it was like ping. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, my body looks good.
You walk with a bit more swagger, you feel pretty...
Absolutely, and then people started responding to it, and there was this validation that I'd never really felt before, and it was like, more please, because I've never felt attractive, and this is an amazing response. And genetically, my physique just did what it did, and I was very lucky because I was quite slim, so it wasn't like I had lots of weight to lose or anything like that. I just bulked up, and... that definitely was a huge seed planted for me that this is the route to go, because people are going to then start taking note of me. And truthfully, it was just that feel-good factor that I'd never had, so I wanted more of it.
I can just imagine you've got, the seeds of the school bully, the abuse, the taunting, the bullying that would just kind of happen in the years as you're growing up. Then all of a sudden, you've got this photographer who is throwing compliments at you, and you're being told this is gonna absolutely rocket you. What happened after that?
So yeah, the response was good, and my time on the show had come to an end, and it was my time to then really work on myself. And fast forward a little bit, got the gym bug, became super fixated and focused on the gym, which at first was really healthy for me. It was a way of me channeling my energy into something. The results were making me feel better. I'd always struggled with mental health to an extent, this lack of confidence, socially awkward at times. I needed that outlet, and it was amazing for me. And obviously, on the sideline, I was struggling with my sexuality. I just hadn't really realised it to an extent. So there was a lot going on still. I was on this mission to try and find my answers. So in this period of changing my body a little bit more, using my public profile, meeting more people, having amazing opportunities still, I ended up meeting a couple of friends that at Pride, ITV asked me to walk for Pride, and I did. I didn't walk as a gay guy, I just walked because I was, I'm all for it. And it was there that I met a group of friends that started making me understand sort of the sexuality side of things a little bit more. I met like a mate of mine who was he was so comfortable within his skin, and he was just this regular guy, but he had an amazing career and he had a great group of friends. He had a lovely boyfriend. And I finally sort of had this, again, awakening. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I like this. And I felt really comfortable within this group of people. And he could see my struggles, and he was a really integral part of me identifying with who I was. And he was like, Char, I'm not here to tell you who you are, but I think it's important that you see how life can be when you're...
How you might fit into this.
Yeah, people really like you, you're a great guy, you've got a lot going for you, and people are constantly speculating, and that's not fun. But he was my safe space to understand, if I was gay, that it was absolutely fine to be gay. And so I took that all with me, and probably within a year after that was the time that I decided that I was going to come back, and I was going to be totally truthful and speak about my struggles to get into 29. I didn't want to embark on my 30s as someone that was, still like in a denial or didn't know who he was. And after spending some time on myself, making new friends, being around a new environment, and meeting a guy that actually was like that moment, okay, the feelings came, then I thought, right, let's do this. Let's just say it once. Let's go on This Morning, which I did. And it was, that was an amazing opportunity to really just like let this out and off my shoulders. And it felt right. The work had been done. It was not forced upon me. It was a real progression from where I had been on TOWIE, say 3-4 years prior, to where I was now. And I sat there, and I was ready to embark on being a 30-year-old gay guy.
Did it feel good letting it out?
It was amazing, yeah. It was great. And I changed my physique so much, and I had tattoos, and I think people were looking at me like, wow, this is a real transformation. And so I could almost like reintroduce myself, which was part of my strategy, I guess. It's like, right, I've taken some time away, and now I'm going to come back, and this is really who I am.
Say as a strategy, what were your kind of thoughts what were your things you were worried about when you did embark on that journey as you, and what was you hoping for the outcome?
I just think that the one thing about being in TV and doing TOWIE and meeting all these amazing people and being around creatives and always loving music and loving entertainment, it was definitely the space I wanted to be in. And the one thing about being on those shows is you can get tarnished quite quickly. There's a snobbery around those shows, and there's reality TV stars, here today, gone tomorrow. And there was part of me that was like, no, if I really want to try and make way in this industry somehow, and I don't know what that looked like, I didn't just want to be Charlie from TOWIE. I wanted to see what being my full true self would look like out there, and if people would like this real version of me as opposed to this version from a structured reality TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that coming out was a really pivotal time in my life, because I really was able to be like Charlie King. And in that interview, I did speak about the struggles of getting there, and that I'd never really fitted in. And I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of this community and yeah, live my true self.
You said about telling your story. What drove you to wanting to tell your story? Because again, going back to that point of, it's a really, really personal struggle that you're then sharing it publicly, and you've got the balance of being on a structured reality show where your life is in that structured parameter out there. What drove you to make the decision to put something so innately personal and so innately private out there in the public? What made you do that?
And that's a good question, and I think that the driving force for that was knowing that I had a little bit of a responsibility. Being that guy at school that was bullied, and knowing that so many people go through that. People that do struggle with their sexuality. Guys like myself that might not necessarily know straight away, or you get your answers later on, and you try the going out with the girls, and you do all different things to really push it away. I could see that I was something different, and people hadn't really seen that before. People was quite interested in me on TOWIE because I was this Essex boy with a bit of a difference. So then when I spoke about my story on This Morning, the influx of people that came my way afterwards that really related to what I'd said and my space within the gay community, I could see that there was really something here, that this is why. I didn't know this was going to be my journey. I never thought that I was ever going to be the guy that came out on live TV when I'd been so confused with who I was. But I realised that having someone like me with my version of events was actually really helpful. And this thing became instilled in me by sharing we can find a common ground. And that really did start this whole new era of myself and what I wanted to do within my career. And even if I just became the spokesperson for that, that was great for me, because I think that if you can help people with sharing a story, then that's a great achievement in life.
Talk to me about the Commons as well, because you've ended up in the committee in the Commons, talking there, but not as a TOWIE star. You're there talking honestly because people wanted to know your experiences. What was that work like? What was that advocacy work like?
So with body dysmorphia and this whole idea that body image can really affect mental health, absolutely it can, and it can be extremely what's the word? People get really fixated, and it can really affect your mood. And if you are someone that does struggle with your mental health, or you're finding it hard to find your answers, and you start focusing on things that you think you might need to change, or the image becomes the obsession, then I think you can fall into some really tricky grounds, like I did. And so by going through what I went through, and then understanding this whole body transformation thing, and then becoming a well-known fitness coach, and having a load of people sign up to my online coaching once upon a time, to doing the front covers of the magazines where I had no clothes on, and I'd been preparing for these shoots for weeks, and it was not fun, but there's me like looking the part, then people wanting to look like that, so they're buying into what I was doing. This responsibility kind of like, I think I had this realization of like, this is, a lot of people want to change who they are, and it's not always in a positive way, or it's not always a healthy approach. And so it's just really important that I shared the journey to me understanding, I guess, just how I was always in search of this need of validation, because my confidence was so poor from events that happened earlier on in my life, and I wanted to try and just show the connection as now I sit here as like someone in my mid-30s. So when I got the opportunity to speak about that, I just wanted the health committee to know that, you know, it really can impact you. Bullying can really impact you, and not having the safe space that you might need. And then as we get older, marketing, this aesthetic world, this social media world, blah, 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 it really has a lot to answer for, and it can really affect people and how they go about their lives.
You mentioned about your personal training and the online coaching. What did you come across when you were a personal trainer that, you know, was in line with what you'd experienced before? Had you seen anyone that looked like you? What did that bring to you?
I think for me, I just got really fixated in the fact that there is a self-obsession aspect to it. So fitness became the thing that people were really responding to. It was feeding my ego. It was keeping me motivated. And it made me want to push myself to be more and more. And it's a very competitive space. You got fitness trainers, Instagram was coming up through the ranks. Everyone wanted to show their bodies. Excuse me. And it became very competitive. And something that had started off where I was enjoying just the change and it was something pleasurable, it was then becoming quite obsessive, to the point where I start really watching what I'm eating. I don't want to have fun. I didn't want to take anything away from a routine that could potentially affect if I was going to train, or how well I might train, if this food was going to cause me problems, or I'm going to feel guilty. And it becomes a very vicious cycle that you're in. I got to the point where I'd worked out so hard, I couldn't raise my shoulder. And it got to the point where I needed plastic surgery came later. It got to the point where I needed surgery on my shoulder, because I'd worn out the joints so much, the AC joint, that I had a scan and the surgeon said, we need to sort this out, because you've got shoulders of like a 60-year-old man.
You managed to degrade your own in this pursuit of physical perfection.
Yeah,
you actually ended up damaging yourself.
Absolutely. And that was part of that. And that was such a panic to me, because I found my thing, and now this is going to stop me in my tracks. And I'd set the bar quite high, and now I've got this injury and I'm going to have to rehab, and it's I'm striving for this perfection, because I think there's a lot within the gay community that you need to be perfect, because you're trying to make up for things that you feel like you've lacked in the past, or you've had an element of shame, and the physical and the image is what's going to push you through, because you can make up for that. And so if I'm beautiful, or if I'm muscly, or if I'm masculine, that can make up for maybe the inner shame that you've had, or what people are responding to you in that positive way about your image. Then it's kind of balancing out a little bit. So yeah,
you alluded to it there about plastic surgery.
Yes.
What were your experiences with plastic surgery, and what drove you to consider that as an option too?
So I think when it came to rehabbing my shoulder and understanding that I needed to calm down a little bit, I tried to incorporate that into my public profile, how I use that into my work, my coaching. And I wanted to try and just realign a little bit, get the balance better. And so I did, and that was fine. It all worked out okay in the end, and I can raise my shoulders now, and I can do my exercises, and that's absolutely fine. But I think that no matter what, that little self-doubt in the back of my head is always there, and this pressure on myself to always want to try and be the best that I can be. And the one thing that had always been in the back of my mind was my nose, because it got broken when I was 18. I didn't go out clubbing at all when I was young, and probably one of the handful of times I went with a friend of mine. We were two little geeks in the club. I just got walloped in the face, wrong place, wrong time, and it dented my nose. And it was just something that had always been there in the back of my mind, but I don't know. It was there, but I didn't really focus
You are
on
your
it.
own worst critic. So that thing, most people probably would not have been able to clock it.
Absolutely.
But for you, it was this seed.
Yes, correct. It was always there, and I knew my angles. And you become being on TV and all that sort of stuff. You can really start picking yourself apart, listening to the comments, seeing the following go up, or what people are responding to. It sounds so silly as I sit here now and I think about it, but I took all that on board so much that I wanted this. I just wanted to be the best, because in a weird way, I've always aspired to the best in the game when it came to like my idols. They were like that pop star mentality of wanting to be the best you can be, in shape, number one in the charts, popular, selling out a world tour. There's that part of me that wanted that, and I own that to an extent. But the nose thing came to the forefront of my mind during the lockdown situation, and it pretty much became the obsession, because I've learned since understanding body dysmorphia in the aftermath of all of this. You got to remember, up until having the nose surgery and thereafter, I didn't realize I had body dysmorphia. It was when I had the therapy and I had consultations about it that I was like, okay, this all makes sense. But I just genuinely thought, you know what, Jar, you're getting a little bit older now. The one thing that you've never really liked is your nose. We've been in this lockdown. It's really shown us, we never know what's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You want to feel like you're living your best life. We want to get back out there. We want to hit the ground running. I'm going to fix this nose. So I did. I just decided that as soon as we came out of that lockdown, I went to see a renowned plastic surgeon. He sat with me. He looked at my face. He's like, your nose, yeah, we can fix that. And he was like, you're a handsome guy, but you can be better.
Oh.
And that in itself was like, okay, sign me up,
Yeah,
get me on that table.
here
Here's
is
your
my
money.
card.
Absolutely.
Take it.
And
Gosh.
and that really fed the insecurity, but it also validated it. And so I embarked on that whole situation, and there was never any real intervention on that. And that's what's really led me to become the advocate further on down the line of talking about cosmetic surgery, bigorexia, and duty of care around from personal training side of things, and understand what you're putting out there, how it can really impact people that are vulnerable or impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
The use of steroids and the extents that people are going to be big, muscly, whatever, and then the lengths people are going to for this perfection when it comes to your aesthetics, plastic surgery, injectables, all of that sort of stuff. Because I've been offered it all. I've got good teeth. I've been offered veneers. I've been offered a hair transplant. And I don't need those things. I don't judge anyone that goes ahead and does those things. But it plants the seed. Do I need this? Is this something that actually, are they saying that I need it? And so you end up looking at yourself a bit. You get a distortion of what you think you might look like.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe what you're seeing is not quite right, that what other people are seeing, and it becomes really, it can become very obsessive, and it can really affect your self-esteem. And I became I started becoming very closed off again when I had that nose surgery.
I spoke to an expert in BDD who said how so many people, there's like an estimate, about 2% of the population may have to some extent BDD, but so many people are completely undiagnosed because they go through that surgical route. They go through the alternate route. What would you say to anyone who's listening that thinks this sounds just a bit like me, or this sounds just like me? What would you say to them? What would you tell them to do?
BDD is a very complex condition. It's definitely a mental health disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And people do get very confused with what it entails, if you like, because it's so multi-layered and there's so many different angles to it. But if you're finding that you're obsessing about your image, how you're seeing yourself is making you not want to be social, or it affects your mood and you're not happy and you're looking to then potentially change yourself, these are big warning signs that you could be struggling with the disorder. And before you do anything, you need to have some help. And that help, people don't always know where to go for that help. So why the BDDF, which I'm an ambassador for now, is so important is they're a great first port of call to help people question and understand, could I be identifying with these points that might lead to this conclusion that I might have this, where to go if I think that I am struggling with it, what to do when you're the friends and family of people that might know someone that has potentially this condition, and where you can go to get the right help. And so I think that's always why I always promote the BDDF, because they've been so helpful to me in understanding what the condition is and the layers that I definitely connect with. And so, yeah, I think that there is help out there, and I always want people to know that there is great resources out there, and people can and will overcome it. It's a condition that can be treated, and people can get through life and put it to one side, which is always a positive outcome.
Thanks so much for your time, Charlie.
My pleasure.
Do you need anything else?
I just want one more thing, which is just in the back of my mind while I'm making this programme, Charlie. I think we've talked about this a lot, which I'm still trying to find the answer for, essentially. So, obviously, I've told you, like, I've grown up with bulimia since I was basically 13, whatever. And I had periods where I stopped and I go back on it. And when you speak to experts, they say you do this route, do this route, do this route to get better and better. And then, it's only when I watched that Freddie Flintoff documentary where he just speaks to someone who's lost someone from it, and they said it's okay to have it as long as you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm trying to get across this mess in this programme, if I had something like this, is, I wondered, because I don't think something like, I don't know what level I am or something, but I don't know if I'll ever be cured of it, or maybe I just live with it. I don't know if you've got an answer to that sort of question, if you sort of get what I'm sort of saying.
Yeah, I do. And yeah, if you maybe we can direct something in that direction. I'm at peace now that I have body dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm.
I live with it, and I'm trying to make the best out of my life with the condition, if you like. It's not something that's actually really defined in me to an extent. I'm just very aware that I have something that I can trigger quite quickly. So it's just, I'm at peace with that, but it's how I put that into I'm very lucky. I have therapy. I have resources around me. I know what to do if I'm set, especially with the nose and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's so complex. It's hard to really put into a box because it's.
Why don't I ask about how you live with BDD? You've accepted that that's what it is. So why don't I ask you?
Yeah, we could try on that one.
How do you live with BDD?
Yeah.
So Charlie, you've accepted that you have BDD, and you're an ambassador for talking about it, and you talk ever so openly about it, and many people will resonate with that. How do you, as an individual, live with BDD?
So now I actually understand what the condition is. It's taken a lot of therapy and looking inwards, which I think is a really positive thing, and it's helped me connect the dots and understand the backstory and the way that it's gone in my life that took me to this point. I think when push comes to shove, I'm always going to be someone that struggles with their confidence. I think I'm someone that is always going to be quite sensitive. I think I'm someone that is always going to want an element of validation. I think that there's this pressure on me to always want to be perfect. I think there was a lot of shame on the sexuality side of things that I didn't realise at the time. And that takes a lot of unpacking. I'm sometimes accused of being heteronormative, and people wonder if that's because I'm scared to really express myself.
Is it internalised homophobia?
Do I have internalised homophobia? These are things that I've looked at, and I don't think so. I think that this is purely my journey, and I'm learning, and we're all here to learn about ourselves, and it's an ongoing thing. I have no shame in saying that I have body dysmorphia. The plastic surgery thing, big mistake. I live with it. I'm getting on with life, and I try and share my story to potentially stop someone that might think that plastic surgery is the answer. If they watch or hear what I say, they might think, hang on a minute, no plastic surgery is going to make me feel any better. I might need to use that money that I'm going to put into that into potentially some therapy. So I always try and advocate for that. And this inner peace now that I have of that, whatever I'm in quest for, there is no such thing as perfection.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that there will always be part of me that wants to be at a certain level with whatever it is that I do. And so I just navigate life trying to have this understanding that this is who I am. And years and years and years of conditioning, life experience and whatever has made me this person. And this person is cool. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but we live and learn like that. And I think that that's a really big wake-up call for me. And so some people that are struggling with their identity, someone that might not like how they see themselves, if they can look at me and understand that it can take you down some rocky paths, but ultimately you'll find some peace, and it doesn't have to define you. You can live your life in a really positive way. Then I don't know. I think that that's really not a bad thing. So it's just owning the elements of who you are. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
Yeah.
That's like a bit of a therapy realization there. So yeah,
I'll charge after.
You can do.